Hey, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing? Back with another video. Hope everyone's well. Jordan Peterson versus Cathy Newman. Just a little thing before we jump into it. So the title says reacting to Jordan Peterson for the first time, which is kind of true. I've never actually sat and watched this interview or other interviews that he has had. However, I have read his 12 for Life book, 12 Rules for Life, sorry, and he done a speech at the Oxford University, and I've watched that. But I've heard about the Cathy Newman interview. How have I heard about that? I think I saw a clip of him talking to Joe Rogan about it, but I've never actually, for whatever reason at the time, I don't know why I didn't come and watch it straight away, but in hindsight, it's probably a good job because now I get to react to it. So obviously I'm British and I know Cathy Newman, not my cup of tea personally, but she's not terrible, but she definitely you can definitely tell when she has an agenda, like that. If it's your first time ever reacting to me, I'm like well to place myself in the political spectrum. Meh. I used to say conservative, but now probably a little more libertarian. Like, doesn't really make sense, but kind of centrist right. Just to give you some perspective on probably what my take is going to be on this whole thing. But if there's more Jordan Peterson clips you want me to react to, just let me know. Someone also requested Ben Shapiro. I'd do that, but I need to know if you guys want to see it. But let's jump into it. That's enough about me. Let's go.
On to another debate that's been very controversial for you. And this is, you got in trouble for refusing to call trans men and women by their preferred personal pronouns.
No, that's not actually true. I got in trouble because I said I would not follow the compelled speech dictates of the federal and provincial government. I actually never got in trouble for not calling anyone anything.
Right.
That didn't happen.
You wouldn't follow the change of law, which was designed
Not
to
once
outlaw
it was law.
discrimination.
No.
Why
Well,
should
that's
your...
what they said it was designed to do.
Okay, you cited freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. Like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I have exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So you haven't sat there and... I'm just trying to work that out. I mean...
No!
Ha.
He's stumped her. He has stumped her. She's very aggressive in this interview, isn't she? No, I wouldn't say aggressive, but very assertive for sure. And it's not often Cathy Newman gets stumped. Like, I don't agree with her all the time, but she's good at what she does. Hats off to Dr. Peterson. I don't know why I called him Dr. Peterson, but hats off to him because not many people stump Cathy like that. Fair play.
Gotcha.
You have got me. You have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head. Yeah. It took a while.
It did, yeah.
It took a while. You have voluntarily come into this studio and agreed to be questioned.
Mm-hmm.
A trans person in your class has come to your class and said they want to be called
That's never
she.
happened. And I would call them she.
So you would. So you've kind of changed your tune on that.
No, I said that right from the beginning. What I said at the beginning was that I was not going to cede the linguistic territory to radical leftists, regardless of whether or not it was put in law. That's what I said. And then the people who came after me said, oh, you must be transphobic and you mistreat a student in your class. It's like, I never mistreated a student in my class.
Okay, so his problem isn't with the language that's been put into law. He doesn't have a problem with trans people. He has a problem with his Canadian right, the Canadian government controlling freedom of speech. So that's very so telling someone that they have to say something is very different from telling someone they can't say something, right? Because that's where I was thinking at first. So I think it's a little bit different in America than it is in the UK and Britain, in the UK and Canada. So here you can't just go up to someone and call them the N-word because that's a hate crime. I think it's a little bit different in America. But this is different than that. This is telling someone that you have to call someone something. Okay. This is more for me, by the way, me just talking out loud, just so I can, keep track of the debate.
You must be transphobic and you mistreat a student in your class. It's like, I never mistreated a student in my class. I'm not transphobic, and that isn't what I said.
Well, except you've also called trans campaigners authoritarian, haven't you? I mean, isn't that
Well, only in the
insensitive?
broader context of my claims that radical leftist ideologues are authoritarian,
Yes,
which
but
they are.
You're saying someone who's trying to work out their gender identity, who may well have struggled with that, had quite a
No
tough
doubt
time
have
over the
struggled
years.
with it, yeah.
You're comparing them with, Chairman Mao, who
No, just the
saw the
activists.
deaths of millions of people. Well,
Just the
even if the
activists.
activists, they're trans people too. They have a right to say these things.
Yeah, but they don't have
Isn't
a
it
right to
grossly
speak for their whole
insensitive
community.
to compare them?
Okay. So, I assume what he meant from that, if he has said that in the past, is he's comparing the ideology that they follow. As he's comparing them that people on the radical left, as he would say, are genuinely more socialist / communist. And that is the same ideology that Mao and Stalin had. And they, well, over the years, it's morphed into what it is now. Marxism and postmodernism. Okay.
To Chairman Mao, or, Pinochet, Augusto Pinochet. I mean, this is grossly insensitive. Isn't
I
it?
didn't compare them to Pinochet.
Well,
I did compare them to
he
Mao.
was an authoritarian.
He's a
wasn't he?
right-winger, though. I was comparing them to the left-wing totalitarians.
Okay,
And I do believe they
Mao-
are left-wing
Mao-
totalitarians.
Under Mao, millions of people died. I
Right.
mean, there's no comparison between
That's-
Mao and a trans activist, is there?
Why not?
Because trans activists aren't killing millions of people?
The philosophy that's guiding their utterances is the same philosophy.
Yeah, okay.
The consequences are...
Not yet.
You're saying that trans activists
No.
could lead to the deaths of millions of people? What
No,
they're
I'm
do-
saying that the philosophy that drives their utterances is the same philosophy that already has driven us to the deaths of millions of people.
Okay, tell us how that philosophy is in any way comparable.
Surely I know it's her job to play the devil's advocate and criticise everything. And I know that she's of the mindset where she's trying to push him into a corner and put that bad spotlight on him. But surely, so he's said what he said, how he said, because he would assume that a person of her intelligence would be able to draw the dots and say, okay, the communist philosophy that they followed has morphed into, Marxism, what we have today, and, mixed with postmodernism. And that he assumes that she would be able to draw that line and see how he's come to that conclusion. But she hasn't, and she's used kind of her, not ignorance, but ignorance on that particular topic to make him look bad.
Sure, that's no problem. The first thing is that the philosophy presumes that group identity is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fundamental philosophy that drove the Soviet Union and Maoist China. And it's the fundamental philosophy of the left-wing activists. It's identity politics. It doesn't matter who you are as an individual. It matters who you are in terms of your group identity.
You're just
That's
saying these
murderous-
things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are a
bit.
provocateur.
I never say
You're like
anything-
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to. You want to stir things up.
I'm only a
That's very
provocateur
poor,
insofar as when I say what I believe to be true, it's provocative. I don't provoke. Maybe for
You don't
humor
set out to
now and
provoke.
then. I'm not interested in provoking.
That was very poor by Cathy Newman then, wasn't it? She couldn't follow his trail of thought, so she resorted to just labels, and that's poor to see, that is. Especially from like a presenter like herself.
What about
the
the thing
least-
about, fighting and the lobster? Tell us about the lobster.
Well, that's quite a segue. Well, the first chapter I have
That is a
in my
segue.
book is called Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back. And it's an injunction to be combative, not least to further your career, let's say, but also to adopt a stance of ready engagement with the world and to reflect that in your posture. And the reason that I write about lobsters is because there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that it's almost unbelievable.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember what his thoughts are on this before he says it, because he explains it quite in depth in his book. He uses lobsters, who are however many species removed, to use the serotonin in their bodies. Like, they have a hierarchical structure based on serotonin, and he compares that to us, and he uses that as evidence for how built into our DNA hierarchies are. That's generally what I like to get, what he thinks and what she thinks before they actually start, so I can follow them easier. It's more for me, the pausing in this, and you guys are free in the comments to let me know if I'm wrong or right, or what you guys thought of their situation. It just helps me follow along a bit easier.
And I use the lobster as an example because the lobster, we divulged from lobsters in evolutionary history about 350 million years ago, common ancestor. And lobsters exist in hierarchies, and they have a nervous system attuned to the hierarchy. And that nervous system runs on serotonin, just like our nervous systems do. Okay. And the nervous system of the lobster and of the human being is so similar that antidepressants work on lobsters. And it's part of my attempt to demonstrate that the idea of hierarchy has absolutely nothing to do with sociocultural construction, which it doesn't.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organize our societies along the lines of the lobsters?
I'm saying that it's inevitable that there will be continuity in the way that animals and human beings organize their structures. It's absolutely inevitable. And there is 1/3 of a billion years of evolutionary history behind that. Right? That's so long that 1/3 of a billion years ago, there weren't even trees. It's a long time. You have a mechanism in your brain that runs on serotonin that's similar to the lobster mechanism that tracks your status. And the higher your status, the better your emotions are regulated. So as your serotonin levels increase, you feel more positive emotion and less negative emotion.
So you're saying, like the lobsters, we're hardwired as men and women to do certain things, to sort of run along tram lines, and there's nothing we can do about it.
No, I'm not.
I understand the meme. Like when you keep seeing a meme and you don't know where it comes from. But I always see like Cathy Newman. So what you're saying is, okay, I get it now. Jesus Christ. It's easy to see that she's not on his level. And that I'm not for 1 second saying that I am, or we as an audience are on his level. But there is a way of, if she's on the other side of the debate, like she is, there's better ways of dealing with this than just, so what you're saying is, and so what you really mean is, and so what it's so poor. And it's a shame because I don't like Cathy Newman, but I'm anyone that can kind of have a good debate. It's interesting to watch, and even if you agree with them or you don't. So to see her come to this it's poor. It's, it doesn't give a good, a good representation on the people that you represent.
I'm saying there's nothing we can do about it because it's like in a chess game, right? There's lots of things that you can do, although you can't break the rules of the chess game and continue to play chess. And your biological nature is somewhat like that, is it sets the rules of the game, but within those rules you have a lot of leeway. But the idea but one thing we can't do is say that hierarchical organization is a consequence of the capitalist patriarchy. It's like, that's patently absurd. It's wrong. It's not a matter of opinion.
Sorry, I know it's annoying.
Can't do is say that hierarchical organization is a consequence of the capitalist patriarchy. It's like, that's patently absurd.
Okay.
It's wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. It's seriously wrong.
Aren't you just whipping people up into a state of anger? And
not at all.
Divisions between men and women, you're stirring people up. You have any critics of you online get absolutely lambasted by your followers.
And by me, generally.
Sorry, your critics get lambasted by you. I mean,
If
isn't
they're
that
academics,
irresponsible?
not at all. If an academic is going to come after me and tell me that I'm not qualified and that I don't know what I'm talking about.
So you're not going to say to your followers now, quit the abuse, quit the anger?
Well, we'd need some substantial examples of the abuse and the anger before I could detail that question.
There's a lot of it out there.
Well, for a start, that just assumes that he has direct control over the people that are followers of him. It's not very fair to put, the blame of them onto him. Something they've done to blame him for it. Obviously, I know she's accusing him of whipping up trouble. It's very disheartening to see. I know I've already said it, to see what you would call a journalist just come to this poor labeling and false rhetoric that she's given him. It's so bad.
Substantial examples of the abuse and the anger before I could detail that question.
There's a lot of it out there.
Let's take a more general perspective on that. So I've had 25,000 letters since June, something like that, from people who told me that I've brought them back from the brink of destruction. And so I'm perfectly willing to put that up against the rather vague accusations that my followers are making the lives of people that I've targeted miserable.
What's in it for the women, though?
Well, what sort of partner do you want? Do you want an overgrown child? Or do you want someone to contend with that's going to help you and that
So
you
you're
can
saying
rely on?
women have some sort of duty to sort of help fix the crisis of masculinity?
It depends on what they want. No, I mean, it's exactly how I laid it out. Like, women deeply want men who are competent and powerful. And I don't mean power in that they can exert tyrannical control over others. That's not power. That's just corruption. Power is competence. And why in the world would you not want a competent partner? Well, I know why, actually. You can't dominate a competent partner. So
you're
if you
saying
want
women
domination...
want to dominate, is that what you're saying?
No, I'd say women who have had their relationships their relationships with men impaired, and who are afraid of such relationships will settle for a weak partner because they can dominate them.
Okay. So women that have had poor relationships with men previously, i.e. fathers, family members, or even early boyfriends, will be driven to find weak partners that they can dominate. Not necessarily dominate, but, take the wheel in the relationship, I suppose is what he's saying. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I imagine there would be a correlation that would support that.
But it's a suboptimal solution.
Do you think that's what a lot of women are doing?
I think there's a substantial minority of women who do that. And I think it's very bad for them. They're very unhappy. It's very bad for their partners, although the partners get the advantage of not having to take any responsibility.
But what gives you the right to say that? I mean, maybe that's how women want their relationships, those women. I mean, you're making these vast generalizations.
I'm a clinical psychologist.
Right, so you're saying you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating men.
I didn't say they were unhappy dominating men. I said it was a bad long-term solution.
Okay, you said it was making them miserable.
He's very good like that, because when she said that, she convinced me that he said that, and I was like, oh, did he say that? Okay, what does he say? He's very good at not only speaking and thinking his argument through before he says it, but also remembering what he's previously said. That's a next tier, that is.
Saying you've done your research and women are unhappy dominating men.
I didn't say they were unhappy dominating men. I said it was a bad long-term solution.
Okay, you said it was making them miserable.
Thing. Yes, it is. And it depends on the time frame. I mean, there's intense pleasure in momentary domination. That's why people do it all the time. But it's no formula for a successful long-term relationship. That's reciprocal, right? Any long-term relationship is reciprocal.
The Liberty Hand. And you know what? I've seen thumbnail-wise so many of these, just like Jordan Peterson versus this person. You know what the internet's like. If you watch someone similar, like I used to. For example, I used to watch the Hodge Twins a lot. And if you start liking the Hodge Twins videos, then the Ben Shapiros, the Jordan Petersons, the Stephen Crowders, they all start coming up. But I just used to watch the Hodge Twins for the comical purposes of it. Surely not. Are all these interviews that intense? Because that's poor. Like, as I've said, a few times in this video, I don't like Cathy Newman, but I respect what she does, and she's pretty good at what she does. But he made her look quite foolish there, and it was kind of painful to watch and kind of disheartening to see how low she'd sunk just to get him to bite something. But he's very calm and composed, man. Very intelligent. He's intelligent from the way he looks at her when she's asking the questions. Like, he's very calm. Like, when she says things like, you're transphobic, a lot of people's first reaction would be, no, and then just start talking. He will just let her finish the question, and he'll be like, "So, let me tell you why you're wrong." But that's great, man. Look, this is what I mean. So look, you watch one, and just a bunch come up. If you want to see me react to any of these, let me know. These are just two British YouTubers to watch, but ignore them. If you want to see me react to more of these, definitely let me know, man, because they're quite, obviously every now and again I pause and I need to just keep up in my head. I don't know if you guys need to do that, but it's definitely more interesting to watch than just a speech. Like, I watched his Oxford University speech and it was great, but you see different sides to people when they're put under the pressure. And like, I've always had the problem of, like, as much as good as Stephen Crowder can be sometimes with the whole change my mind thing, the problem that I do take with him is he's always up against college kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, these kids ain't gonna have the answers or the knowledge to really take it to him. And that's probably an unpopular opinion, but to have someone like Cathy Newman or a fellow intellectual go up against you is it's a different pay grade. But I enjoyed that, man. I didn't know what it would entail. I've heard it was good and interesting, and I know it's a very famous interview that I just never got around to watching for some reason. But definitely let me know if you want me to react to more Jordan Peterson. I'd be quite excited to, if I'm honest. I know there's a ton of Ben Shapiro compilations. I'm not really super clued up on Ben Shapiro. I know I've saw bits and bobs, like the highlights of Ben Shapiro destroys transgender, and it's like a 30-second clip. I've saw some of them, but nothing like 10-minute, 20-minute worth. But let me know. But take it easy. Like, comment, subscribe if you don't mind. I really appreciate the subscribers. Trying to get up there, man. It's been a while, but we're at it. But yeah, peace out, guys. Take it easy and take care.